Rampage Jackson was visibly furious. "We might get into a fight," he said, his voice tense. I'm highly... You guys, I can't even put into words how upset I am with my son. He dishonored my name. He knew I would have told him to go home because he got a Akat's concussion. What began as typical father-son banter on a live stream quickly escalated. Rampage Jackson attacked his son on live stream, and the interaction spiraled into a brutal public meltdown. The MMA legend not only tarnished his own image, but also exposed a deeply personal family feud for the entire world to witness. Fans were left stunned, watching a raw and humiliating breakdown unfold before their eyes. That never happened. None of this ever happened, he insisted. The stream had been rolling like any other, until the spark ignited the fire. Rampage snapped at his son, Roger, right there in front of thousands of live viewers. His words cut sharp. "Piss, Roger, you mad at me for real?" What should have been harmless teasing suddenly turned darker, and Roger didn't hold back. No hesitation, no filter, he fired back with his own response. Nobody expected a son to say, in front of the entire world, that his dad wasn't always a good father. That one line hit harder than any punch Rampage ever threw inside the cage. This wasn't about entertainment anymore, it was raw, personal, and messy. Everybody's wrong. The dumbest thing I ever seen. "It's a dying nightmare," Rampage said, his face telling the story. One second he was furious, the next it was like his pride cracked in half. The tough guy, the MMA legend, the man who had fought some of the deadliest fighters on earth, was suddenly just a dad, and not a very good one in his son's eyes. You could hear the pain dripping through the stream as Roger doubled down. He didn't walk it back. He didn't laugh it off. He meant it. Roger was the most wrong. Everybody's wrong, but none of this always ever would have happened. "This psycho dude never hit my son," he declared, and that's when things got even more chilling. Rampage, anger boiling over, warned his son, "You will get tagged for that." It was a threat, a promise, a warning. Nobody knew what it meant in that moment. But what came after was even stranger. The same man who had just barked at his son suddenly begged him, "No, no, no, don't, son. Don't do this." It was like watching a fighter trapped between fury and heartbreak, unable to control either. "Roger, you mad at me for real for that?" he shouted. "Yeah, that pissed me off, bro. What's wrong with you? Am I not a good dad sometimes?" That's where the cracks started to show. For Rampage, this wasn't just an insult. It was his own son publicly questioning the one role he couldn't afford to fail at, being a father. His entire career had been built on reputation. Fans knew him as a warrior, a champion, a man who could take punishment and give it back twice as hard. But now, on a random stream, his son stripped all of that armor away with 4 simple words. "Sometimes you're not." Why did it sting so much? Because Rampage always prided himself on being more than just a fighter. He wanted to be a dad who provided, who guided, who kept his family strong. And here was Roger, the person who knew him best, was saying that sometimes he failed. "Sometimes, for real?" he asked. "Yeah, what was that really bad thing I did?" "Yeah, that was very hurtful. You hurt my feelings. I'm sorry." "It's all good. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You will get tagged for that." No. "Don't, son. Don't do this." If you watched his reaction closely, you could see it wasn't just anger. It was vulnerability, plain and painful. In a shaky voice, Rampage asked the question no father ever wants to ask. "Am I not a good dad?" That line broke people because here was a man who faced legends like Wanderlei Silva and John Jones. But he couldn't handle the words coming from his own child. It was gut-wrenching, and it was live for everyone to see. And they do all kinds of crazy things, and Rampage is doing it. And apparently his son is doing it as well. And I just think that this is so crazy and so dangerous. Roger didn't soften. He didn't try to clean it up. He simply said, "Sometimes you're not." No hesitation. Cold, honest, brutal, that's the moment that stuck. That clip alone spread like wildfire because it wasn't just a fight between father and son. It was proof that even the strongest men can be crushed by words that come from home. This clip became more than just drama. It turned into a symbol a symbol of a toxic father-son dynamic that no longer stayed behind closed doors. It spilled out online, raw and unfiltered. Now everybody had a front-row seat to the breakdown. The fighter who spent decades building his name in cages and arenas lost control in the one arena he couldn't win. His own family. He didn't give a sign about what chat said. You know what I'm saying? He's an MMA guy going to a pro wrestling ring. Like some people, some kids, some people, they think that A's is real. But the thing is, Roger really did hit him. And you could see one guy tried to pull Roger off and Roger still going and hitting him. But then you see Roger throw some punches that land in the air. It didn't stop with the live stream. That was just the spark. The fire came later when Roger stepped out of his dad's shadow and into a pro wrestling storyline that was supposed to be entertainment, but quickly turned into a nightmare. Wrestling has always been built on drama, but this wasn't a script gone wrong. This was real violence, the kind that promoters whisper about in back rooms because they know they let something slip too far, and it seems like Roger was really trying to sell it. But Roger really hurt that man. The chaos started with Psycho Stu, a name that sounds like a cartoon villain, but the damage he took was anything but funny. Backstage, there was a hit to the head. Nothing unusual in wrestling. It happens. But instead of cooling down, Roger was told the words that flipped a switch. Get your receipt. Now, in wrestling terms, that means go out there and give back what you took. Make it even. Keep the storyline alive. But Roger didn't stop. He went all in. He just under my name too, though. What should have been a staged brawl turned into a straight-up beatdown. Roger unloaded on Psycho Stu, dropping shots that weren't staged, weren't pulled, and weren't safe. Before anyone could realize what was happening, Stu was on the floor, unconscious. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't laugh. They went quiet, watching something that wasn't scripted anymore, a man lying still while another kept swinging. And this wasn't just a slip of temper. This was Roger taking it way too far. Fans who came to see over-the-top entertainment ended up witnessing something closer to a mugging. By the time people rushed in to pull Roger off, the damage was already done. Stu wasn't just embarrassed, he was hurt badly. He shouldn't have been in that ring. He shouldn't. As soon as Psycho Stu hit him in the head. Now, here's where it gets even more complicated. Enter Rampage Jackson, the father who spent decades smashing through cages, breaking down opponents, and building a reputation as one of the scariest fighters in MMA. And what does he say about his son's actions? Not pride, not defense, no. He goes off publicly, loudly, brutally. He dishonored my name too, though. Rampage admitted flat out that he was furious. Furious at Roger for what he did. Furious at himself for letting it get this far, and furious at the mess that was now plastered across headlines. But at the same time, he still paid his son's legal bills. That's the twisted part of fatherhood. You can want to strangle your kid 1 second, but still bail them out the next. He shouldn't have. He shouldn't have been in that ring. He shouldn't. As soon as Psycho Stu hit him in the head, and then Rampage dropped the line that hit fans harder than anything. He dishonored my name. Let that sink in. Not he hurt somebody, not he embarrassed himself, but he dishonored my name. For Rampage, this wasn't just about Roger's choices. It was about the Jackson legacy, the name he built in blood, sweat, and fists, the name he carried across UFC cages and into global fame. In his eyes, Roger dragged it through the dirt. He dishonored my name. I've been in this sport for a long time, and when he did that, they're like, son of MMA. To make the line even sharper, Rampage compared his own career. I break doors, not people. Think about that. The man was famous for literally slamming doors off their hinges in anger, but he wanted everyone to know he never crossed the line into pure brutality. That was the difference. He was a showman, an entertainer, a fighter who knew the limits. Roger lost control. Just saying my son snuck into a ring like he wasn't supposed to be there. And that's not fair. And then came the confession that really showed how torn Rampage was. He admitted without blinking, If he didn't have a concussion, I would have whooped his ass myself. That's not some fatherly metaphor. That's Rampage saying if his son hadn't already been damaged, he would have added to it himself. Anger mixed with heartbreak, spilling out for the whole world to hear. And he snuck in a ring and beat the guy up while he was working. But let's be real, this wasn't just about one bad night. This was years in the making. Rampage himself said it, Roger never listened. Every bit of advice, every warning, every attempt to guide him was ignored. If Rampage said go left, Roger went right. If Rampage said keep calm, Roger snapped. It was like he built his personality out of doing the exact opposite of what his dad told him, and people automatically assume, I'm going to defend my son, I'm going to, try to pay people off and get him out of trouble. But Rampage said, I'm just as mad at Roger as they are. Streaming only made it worse. Rampage had actually set it up to be Roger's future, a safe lane where he could build something for himself without the same brutal risks of fighting. A chance to talk, joke, connect with fans, and make money while staying out of trouble. And what did Roger do? He burned it down. He couldn't handle the pressure, the criticism, or the line between entertainment and reality. And Roger said, I'ma be in character. I'm live streaming. I'ma be in character, Roger said. And I'ma tows him up. Kick, the platform that gave him the shot, eventually had enough. They pulled the plug, banned him, done. And that told you everything you needed to know. Because when a platform that thrives on chaos and controversy decides you're too much, that's saying something. It was proof, as Rampage himself put it, that some people just shouldn't stream. The fight had left the cage. The script had left the ring. And the chaos was now online for everyone to consume frame by frame, like a car crash you couldn't look away from. When Rampage talks about his son, it always circles back to one word: alpha. Not just in the strong male sense, but in the stubborn, thick-skinned, I'm right even when I'm wrong kind of way. He admitted flat out he can't even sit in the same room with Roger right now. Why? Because it wouldn't end in a conversation. It would end in fists flying. And that wasn't some empty threat. That was Rampage being brutally honest. If they faced each other today, it'd get physical and nobody would back down. It's the weirdest thing. The problem is when you've got two alphas under one roof. Neither sees himself as the kid anymore. Roger sees himself as grown, fully independent, a man who doesn't need to answer to anyone. Rampage? He's been grown since the early 2000s, when he was knocking people out in Pride and the UFC. Put those two mindsets together, and you don't get a peaceful family dinner. You get a standoff that feels like two bulls locking horns. And in this case, neither bull wants to take a step back. What Roger did was uncalled for, and I know it affected a lot of people. The real danger is that Roger's fuse isn't just short, it's practically non-existent. Rampage even admitted that Roger thinks everyone who disrespects him must be racist. That's his go-to. Doesn't matter if it's a promoter, a fan, or some random guy online. If you cross him, suddenly it's about race. And when you mix that mindset with his temper, you've got someone who feels justified in blowing up at every little thing. 'Cause, he knew I would have told him to take his ass home. Rampage's fear isn't just that Roger is embarrassing him. It's bigger than that. He's terrified that Roger could put the whole family at risk. Not just bad press or ugly headlines, actual danger. When your son can't control his rage, when he's knocking people out for real in what's supposed to be staged wrestling, and when he's shouting back at critics online, you don't just worry about reputation. You worry about somebody coming after your family. And guess what? That's exactly what started happening after the wrestling incident. Death threats came pouring in, not just at Roger, but at Rampage himself, and even at his other kids. Think about that. Rampage Jackson, the man who once walked through cages with chains around his neck like a villain out of a movie, now sitting at home, having to read messages from strangers saying they want him and his kids dead. It's insane. It's sick. And it shows how fast the internet turns ugly when it smells blood. He's not a pro wrestler. He had no business in that ring. Everybody there was wrong. And, yes, my son took it too far, but he knows better. He knows he's wrong for getting involved in a pro wrestling match. Rampage said he's got safety measures in place now. He's not dumb. He's not about to let random people try him. but you could hear it in his voice. The man felt betrayed. Betrayed by the fans, betrayed by the promoters, and even betrayed by the same internet that used to love him. And then he let it rip. A full-on rant about low IQ people who believe everything they see online. He didn't hold back. He basically said, "The world is full of idiots who can't tell the difference between a storyline, a mistake, and real life." Roger was wrong. But here's the twist of irony that nobody could ignore. The very same live streams that Rampage built for Roger are the reason people had all the ammo they needed. Every outburst, every fight, every bit of ugly family drama was right there online. Free clips, free evidence, free content for haters to chew on. Rampage gave them the stage, and Roger gave them the performance. The ripple effects didn't stop there. Wrestling promotions started quietly washing their hands of Roger. Kick. They wanted nothing to do with him anymore. His name became toxic overnight, and the same people who hyped him up before were now cutting ties, pretending they never backed him in the first place. Rampage said it himself. These promoters loved Psycho Stu getting roughed up when it made good content. But when it went too far, they acted shocked like they had no idea. And that raised real questions. Why did nobody step in faster when Roger was pounding on Stu? Why did they let it go so long that he ended up unconscious on the ground? Was it incompetence or worse? Did they know it was out of control and just let it ride because chaos equals clicks? Roger's wrong. He went against, what I told him to do, and he hid the fact that he got rode into a pro wrestling sword. Roger is not a pro wrestler. Still, no matter who you point fingers at, one truth remained. Rampage's family was wrecked by all of this. And that's why the next part of his reaction was maybe the most heartbreaking of all. He stood up and apologized, not to Roger, not to the fans, but to Psycho Stu's family. Think about the weight of that. A father apologizing for the destruction his son caused, even while he's still boiling with anger at that same son. That's not easy. That's not natural. That's pain layered on top of loyalty. I still take care of my son because I still love him. Even though I'm upset at my son, I still love him. You know what I'm saying? He's my son. But Rampage admitted he's torn in half. On one side, he still loves Roger, his son, his blood, the kid he raised. On the other, he's ashamed. Ashamed to the point where he can't even talk to him right now. He said it straight. I can't talk to him right now. That's how broken the relationship is. Too much anger, too much resentment, too much humiliation to even pick up the phone. Seems like my life and my kid's life. Rampage Jackson's story was supposed to be about legacy, a fighter who left his mark in the cage. But now that legacy feels clouded by humiliation. What once defined him as a legend is being overshadowed by a messy family feud broadcast to the world. Streaming turned private pain into public spectacle, and Roger's path went from promising to disastrous. Too small for one weight class, too big for another, and way too reckless to stream. The most haunting part? Rampage admitting he doesn't even know if his son has a future left. That's not victory.